Everybody, welcome back to Red Zone DFS. We have week 9 in the main college football slate ahead of us here. So hopefully everyone is having a great year. Man, football season is moving right along, isn't it? Kind of recapping on last week a bit. Man, last week was frustrating. Not my best week. Hopefully you guys were able to construct some lineups that hit. There was just a few gaffes that I made in my lineups. Obviously, a few injuries kind of took place. I also picked the wrong Ohio State receiver, which I will not do this week with Jackson Smith-Njigba. I don't know if we can count on that guy at this point, but he definitely derailed a few lineups, which was tough. But hey, you learn, you move on, and you get ready for the next slate. So let's dust ourselves off. Let's get into it. I'm going to go ahead and hit on some of the games. Overview talking about what we're looking to see here early Saturday morning for us on the West Coast, about 12 o'clock for you East Coasters out there, and let's do it. So looking at what we have to deal with here in terms of the games. So we have Arkansas at Auburn. You can see the spreads here. Arkansas is a 3.5-point favorite on the road, 61.5 over under, which we do love. Oklahoma at Iowa State. Sooners a 1-point favorite. TCU goes to West Virginia, 7.5-point favorite with a massive over-under at 69. Nice. Georgia Tech goes to Florida State, where they are a 24-point dog. Notre Dame goes up to Syracuse, who had that heartbreak of a game versus Clemson last week. Notre Dame is a 3-point dog. Ohio State, Penn State, the big one on the slate here. Ohio State goes in more than a 2-touchdown favorite on the road to Happy Valley. Rutgers and Minnesota, pretty much we can X this one out, I think, from a DFS perspective, in my opinion. We'll talk about it a little bit. But Florida, Georgia, 56.5 in the cocktail party, 22-point favorite for the dogs. Oregon and Cal, which is a very interesting game, in my opinion. Oregon is a 17-point favorite. Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Wake Forest, Louisville, we have Illinois and Nebraska, and then Cincinnati, UCF. So as you can see here, I have kind of highlighted and broken down. I know a few of you have mentioned you'd love to see a little bit more where I start my research. This is it. So this is kind of how I start everything in the week. Again, DraftKings, when you see the positional ranking and the number rating, I guess, as far as who they're facing. So quarterback, you'll see, quarterback, they are facing, let's say, Oregon versus Cal, and you'll see a ranking of 101. That's talking about the positional value in points, raw points against that team from that position. So I like to do it a little bit differently. I really like tracking yards. Yards, again, for me, is opportunity. Obviously, you cannot talk, you can't really like hone in on touchdowns, who's going to get them, how that's going to work. So I think yardage is a very good indicator of who's going to move the ball, who's going to not move the ball, who is going to put themselves into position to score points more so than going about scoring totals. So when you look at it here, here's all the rankings in terms of yardage per team this season. So you got passing offense, passing defense, rushing offense, rushing defense. And then I like to look and try to identify some areas that I think we can attack. Off the page here, you can see TCU and West Virginia's passing games are something that are very interesting. When you look at Ohio State's passing game going against Penn State, ranked 79th in yards given up, that's something we should have some interest in. Georgia versus Florida, very clear 7 versus 90. Oregon to Cal, 36 to 115. 14-71, you have Oklahoma State going against Kansas State's defense. Wake Forest has a slight advantage, obviously, in the passing game, 19-51 to Louisville. Highlighted here, obviously, are some of the bigger totals that I have my eye on, as you can see. And then moving over to the rushing side, some areas that I think we can exploit. Arkansas, the 9th ranked rushing offense in terms of yardage, going against Auburn at 119. TCU versus West Virginia. You have Florida State in a favorable matchup versus Georgia Tech. Georgia, favorable matchup versus Florida. You've got Kansas State going against Oklahoma State on the ground. And then Illinois versus Nebraska. So, again, I know you guys have kind of asked for it. Here it is. This is kind of where I start my research. Going to now some of my favorite plays this week. So when you start to look at it, I mean, a few things that obviously jump off. There's a few stacks that I really like this week. So let me just get right to it. Right off the bat, I have Ohio State. So Ohio State, they are a 15.5-point favorite on the road, Happy Valley. I think you look at it, Iowa gave them their toughest test yet, and it is just something that I think Ohio State's pretty unstoppable right now. They were held in check for a lot of the game. They found other opportunities and ways to score to take that lead, but we did see eventually that beast wake up, and when it does, there's no slowing these guys down. We've seen Penn State's defense get rolled up here a few times this year, and I just don't see how Penn State really slows these guys down. So when you're looking at that, I think you got to attack the passing game. The rushing side is more than favorable for Ohio State, but it's harder to obviously predict the guys that are going to get it, being that they are in a split backfield. So for me, top stacks, Ohio State is up top. You have C.J. Stroud at 9,200, followed by Marvin Harrison Jr. at 7,400, is probably the number one target in that offense. Some would say it's Emeka Egbuka, 6,900. Both of those guys are phenomenal plays. If you can jam both in, that's what I'm going to try to do. Go right ahead and get that done. Or you can go down to Julian Fleming at 5,100. Again, Jackson Smith-Njigba, I don't know how much he's going to play. I don't know how much he's going to affect the rotation. If he's out, if he's going to be just a rotational guy early, until he's fully healthy, it complicates things. I wish they would just sit him down and make this a very clear cut. These three receivers of Harrison, Egbuka, and Fleming being the dudes. But I'm going to be playing these three guys. I'm out on Jackson Smith for now. Hopefully these are the three that see the majority of the target share, because I think Ohio State absolutely runs away with this one. So Ohio State is my number one stack. Going on to number two, TCU. Max Duggan has had an absolute phenomenal season. Man, this guy should be in the Heisman talk. No doubt about it. He is absolutely kicking butt, taking names. 8,500 for him. He's a passing threat. He's a rushing threat. Quentin Johnston has woken up, obviously, the number one receiver there at TCU. It's 7,200. I think Duggan and Johnston are two of the best plays on the slate for sure. We talked about it a little bit. They are going against West Virginia's passing defense, which is ranked 117 on the season in all of college football, or Division I, I should say, in terms of yards given up. So TCU should have a field day here against this defense. Sneaky shootout potential as well if West Virginia can keep this thing close. But I think TCU is in a great spot here this weekend. Moving on down, kind of a unique stack, kind of a one that I think we're going to start to see a changing of the tide here is Georgia. Georgia is a team that they just really have not been challenged too much. We've seen them with a few closer games against bad teams. I just think that's them being asleep at the wheel. Like, they're so much better than everybody they've played. They have really not needed to put the foot down on the gas pedal and get on the freeway here. As we are entering the second half of the season, these guys need to start getting ramped up, obviously, for some big matchups coming up here with like Tennessee in a few weeks. You got the SEC Conference Championship coming up, and then you've got the playoff, obviously. That's what Georgia has their eyes set on. And I think we're going to start to see these guys put it into gear. World's biggest cocktail party this weekend. They're a 22-point favorite over over Florida. And I think we start to see these guys step it up and take it to another level. So Stetson Bennett is expensive at 8,400. Brock Bowers at 6,600. I think both of those guys are really good plays here. I don't see Florida, upsetting them or anything like that, but I could see Bowers having a pretty monster game here. So I definitely want a piece of that. Oklahoma State, we talk about them every week. Every week they're on the main slate. I'm going to keep playing them. Spencer Sanders at 8,300. He looked fine to me last week. I know he's got that injury, but he just continues to produce whenever he is out there. Brendan Presley at 5,900 is one of his main weapons. Bryson Green at 5,400 and John Paul Richardson at 4,500. Keep an eye on this one a little bit as we start to see and get closer to game time. They do have a few other receivers like Bray and the other guy. I'm slipping my name right now, but they've had some injuries at the receiver position. So, we'll just see kind of what this looks like heading up to game time. But either way, I'm in on this Oklahoma State team. As of now, these are my three favorite receivers. Again, that's Presley, Green, and Richardson. If Bray plays and some of these other guys play, it obviously could adjust on who we're stacking into that lineup. But Oklahoma State for me is definitely on my list as they face a Kansas State defense that is going to give it up, right? And they play in high-scoring games. I'd really like to see Adrian Martinez play, but either way, we'll talk about that a little bit. Oklahoma State's going to be in my player pool, my stack pool this week. In number 5, I have Wake Forest. These guys just continue to produce, man. Good matchups, bad matchups, doesn't really matter. I think Sam Hartman is the most underrated quarterback in college football. They are the 19th ranked passing offense in terms of yardage in the country. They have a really high total in this game of 62 in a 3.5 point favorite. We've talked about this before. Love high totals where the spread is going to be close. I think Louisville can score on these guys. So hopefully this is one of those sneaky games that we could see as being the nuts and nuking the slate. So I will have some major interest on both sides of this game. But Wake Forest for me, Sam Hartman, A.T. Perry, Jamal Banks. You could get some Taylor Morin in there as well if you want. He's a little bit cheaper, but he's definitely more of the inconsistent guy, I would say, on this passing attack. So it's for me, it's Hartman, it's Perry, it's Banks. That's where I'd like to go. And those are my top 5 stacks. You have Ohio State, TCU, Georgia, Oklahoma State, and Wake Forest. Moving down a little bit, 2 other stacks I think you can consider this week. Arkansas, you have KJ Jefferson, who's at a nice discount at 6,300, and Jadon Hasselwood at 5,800 as being his main pass catcher. Again, another game where we have a 61.5 total, close 3.5 spread. In terms of the rankings, nothing jumps out in a major way, but I think this is kind of a sneaky game that Arkansas could get after him a little bit here. So going down, another one that to keep an eye on, Louisville. We just talked about the other side of that game. I think Malik Cunningham at 8,000 is a really good price for him. And then you've got a few pass catchers as well with Amari Bruce. Higgins Bruce is my favorite pass catcher for them at 5,100 when you're talking about price per dollar savings. So again, Arkansas, Louisville, 2 teams to consider stacking there. And then you've got some kind of naked quarterback options you could always consider. Obviously up top, it's Bo Nix, who is just playing out of this world right now. He's, let's see, what is he this week? 9,400. But it's hard to deny this kid right now what he's doing, man. He is just absolutely lighting the world on fire. The one thing I'll say, Cal kind of hangs their hat a little bit on defense. That's what they try to do because they do not have a very explosive offense. I don't know. This is one of those tricky spots, in my opinion, that Oregon just had, the game of their life. They just absolutely smashed UCLA at home. Some would say this could be a letdown spot for them, kind of a trap game. Just keep an eye on it. I know they're big favorites, over under 58. Cal is not a great football team by any means, but they are good enough that they could provide some challenges here for Oregon if they don't bring their A game. I'll still have some Bo Nix, no doubt about it, but I'm not quite as high on this game as some other people might be. So that's just kind of my initial thoughts. 2 other guys I think you can consider, Jordan Travis for Florida State at 8,200. And then Kansas State, if Adrian Martinez plays, he's 8,100. He's always in play if he does go. I saw a report yesterday that said he is highly questionable for this game. If he misses, Will Howard at 6,200 becomes a very good play here. So that's kind of it for the quarterback stacks. Going on to running backs, some of my favorites this week, Chase Brown at 7,500. He's in an amazing spot here as we look at kind of the rankings once again. Illinois is top 25 in terms of rushing offense, and they are going against a horrific Nebraska rushing defense. So Chase Brown up top is in a great spot. Deuce Vaughn, 7,000. Depending on who plays quarterback, they may have to lean on him a little bit more in this matchup. So I love that play at 7K. Raheem Sanders might be my favorite back on the slate. 6,900. He is going against a horrific Auburn rushing defense. Very much in play. Might be my favorite running back on the slate here this weekend. Kenny McIntosh for Georgia. He is someone that we need to keep an eye on. He has been splitting carries with Milton all season. Milton missed last game. They blew the team out, so they didn't need to, run McIntosh into the ground. If Milton misses this game against Florida, I love Kenny McIntosh. At 6,800, if he's going to be the bell cow here this weekend, I will have quite a bit of him. If Milton plays, I'll still have a little bit of both, but definitely won't be as overexposed as I would if one were to miss. Going down a little bit, another guy that I absolutely love this weekend is Keandre Miller for TCU. He's at 6,300. Again, TCU's got a super favorable matchup in terms of the offensive side of the ball here versus West Virginia. They finally gave him a ton of touches last week, and he produced in a major way. I hope TCU continues to lean on him because he is a stud. 6,300, the price is just too good. I will be all over him here this weekend. Charles McClelland at 6,200. Man, this one was frustrating last week. He got up to a massive fast start, was up over 100 yards and a touchdown like in the first quarter and a half of that game. And then they went away from him. It was brutal. So, I'll go back to him. I think this game should be a little bit more competitive versus UCF. It's a 1-point game. Hopefully they have to lean his way some more and they don't go away from him, but he will split time in that backfield, which is kind of frustrating. Going down here. Bucky Irving, 5,700 for Oregon. It was really good to see Oregon give him the majority of touches last week out of the backfield. If they're going to continue to do that, he is in a great spot at 5,700. We just don't know. Oregon could go back to kind of a split zone or a split backfield here. Tank Bigsby at 5,400 is in a good spot. I think he's the counterplay to your Arkansas stacks, or if you're going to play Raheem Sanders, Tank Bigsby is the guy there for Auburn. 5,400 is a really great price for him. They've kept him there all year long, and we've seen him blow that price tag out of the water a few times now. So I think that is an interesting play. Auburn at home, there's worse plays on the slate for sure. Lawrence Tafili, if you have Ward out for Florida State, which he missed last game, and people are worried that he might have a significant injury, Trayshawn Ward at running back, I think Tafali is the guy you go to. He's 3,900 for Florida State. He saw, I think, 15, 16 carries last week. Super explosive guy. I think that's the play I'm going to. Florida State, let me look here. Yeah, they're in an amazing rushing spot here in this game. So I'm kind of hoping, obviously, I hope, Ward's all right. But if he misses, Tafali, for me, becomes a really, really good play in a smash spot here versus Georgia Tech. Some dart throws that I want to take this week. These are by no means core plays, guys. Do not just lock these two into your lineup, but the spots are good. The spot is good for one. The spot is interesting for another. Number one for me is Jarrell Brock. Iowa State just chooses not to run the football ever, which is pretty bold strategy, I would say. But Brock, when he gets the touches, is very efficient, super dynamite. He produces every time he gets the opportunity. Iowa State goes here against Oklahoma, who has one of the worst rushing defenses in the country. Brock is 5,400. I really want to take a dart throw or two on him because if he gets the touches, if he can get, 15, 20 touches in this game, I think he's got 150 plus upside here. So who knows? I mean, Jarrell Brock could get 3 touches. Like, I don't know Iowa State and what they're trying to do, but just throwing that one out there as a dart throw. And then Nick Singleton. I really want to take a dart throw here. I think this game is super interesting from the fact that Penn State's only path to victory is running the football. They do not want to get a shootout with Ohio State. The more they can run, the more they can control the clock, the more they can keep Ohio State's offense off the field, they have a better chance. But Ohio State is absolutely going to load the box, and they're going to stack things up trying to prevent that. They're going to force Sean Clifford to throw the football here. But Nick Singleton started to get in the mix a little bit in the passing game last week, which I thought was interesting. He also is the guy who has home run hitting ability for this team. So I don't know, man. At 5,100, I think it's very possible that he could take a 70, 80-yarder to the house on these guys. It's at home. I'm going to have a dart throw too on him. I don't think he's a core play whatsoever. There's a lot of good running backs I just talked about who are in great spots. This is not a great spot, but he is a home run hitter in a game where they absolutely need to win this game. So I will take some shots on Nick Singleton for sure. And then kind of wrapping things up, my receiver list. We talked about a lot of the receivers here within the stacks that I'm going to be playing. But for some one-off receivers, Xavier Hutchinson, always at 7,900. Expensive price tag, but he produces every single week. So he's up top. going down a little bit. I mentioned Brock Bowers, 6,600 might be my favorite receiving option on the slate, or one of them when you look at price. Oronde Gadsden keeps producing at 6,100 for Syracuse. You've got Isaiah Williams at 5,800 is interesting. Michael Mayer, another guy at 5,600 is just too cheap. He's the only guy that catches balls for Notre Dame. Keep playing Michael Mayer. Caden Prather for West Virginia. If you need a bring back, if you are going to be playing TCU, he's your guy, in my opinion. They've got other dudes, but he's the right price tag for what you were looking for with the bring back. J. Michael Stravant for Cal at 5,100 has had a really good season. They're not on the main slate or really any slate often, so take advantage of this guy while you have him here. 5,100 is a really good price for him. Phillip Brooks, 4,800 is another guy you could throw into the mix. Brevin Spawn-Ford at 3,900 is a dude that you can consider. And Marvin Anderson, also in the 3K range, is someone that you could play. So that's kind of it. A very interesting slate this week. Again, I have my games. I have my stacks. There's some other guys you can go to that I'll be mixing and matching, but I think it's pretty condensed. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to roll with those teams, those stacks that I mentioned. I think running back's pretty clear cut this week. So hopefully it is a big winner, but I'm not going to get too crazy this week. I think there's some games that we can kind of cross off for the most part overall. So, I'll be posting updates as always, guys, on Twitter, on the YouTube channel, in the comments section. So, I've been getting more interaction, which is awesome. Keep sending me tweets, DMs, or commenting on YouTube if you have questions, or if you have some sneaky plays that you like, add them in. Let's get it going. Let's win some money. There's enough of the pie to go around. My Twitter handle is at Vinnie Levine 29. And definitely do us a favor. Hit the thumbs up on this video. It helps us out in a major way. Subscribe if you can. We'll have a lot of our NFL content coming out later this week as well. And until next time, good luck.